Hello humans! Today I wanted to compare and contrast between three of the most popular shaving methods in the world. So without too much further ado, I'm going to introduce three shaving methods, the first being the straight razor. Straight razors have an extremely long history. Their origins are fairly unknown, however they are based off of traditional style folding knives, very similar to this, which people kept sharp enough to shave with should shaving be necessary. You can very clearly see where the inspiration comes from between these two designs. The second is going to be the T-handle safety razor. First invented in the early turn of the century by King Kampf Gillette. Safety razors are an extremely useful way of keeping yourself shaved while producing minimal waste, but are still significantly safer than, for example, a straight razor. And finally, we have modern multi-blade razors. These are quite new, again pioneered in large part by the Gillette Company, or by the Gillette Razor Company, I should say. Multi-blade razors are the most new sort of addition to this collection. So let's compare and contrast, I suppose. We're going to start off with the straight razor. It's very simple. It is a straight sharpened blade. Sorry about this one here's shape. I don't have my daily one on me right now. It's a simple folding knife with a small tang, which can be held with the blade open in order to shave. Edge of the blade is pressed up against the skin, and hair is removed like so. The advantages of this design are that you can have a extremely sharp blade, you can exhibit a fair amount of fine control, and you also have a larger amount of blade should you be doing something like your cheek and you want to cut as much hair off as possible in one fell swoop. There is the argument that this is going to give you a closer shave or a better shave, which is often fairly well founded. But overall, it does allow for more control. You can close the razor like this and slip it inside of a pocket or carrying pouch very easily. And as long as you know what you're doing with your sharpening, maintenance, and generally using the blade, safety razors are quite safe. Or straight razors are quite safe. Next up in the design evolution, we have T-handle safety razors. So T-handled safety razors are a style of razor where you have a handle piece, a blade rest, a disposable razor blade, and a clamp to hold the razor blade against the rest. So these three pieces are put together, and then the handle is simply either screwed in, or in some more intricate models, what you have is a rest and clamp that work together. You twist the handle to release, and then you can pop the blade out, drop a new one in, twist, and the actual top part, the clamp here, will open and close to allow razors to come in. So the advantages of a T-handle safety razor, exactly like it's in the name, this is a significantly safer way of shaving. There's a lot less things that can go wrong, and having a disposable, non-resharpenable blade means that you are significantly less likely to injure yourself. So with the straight razor, there are several ways to injure yourself, including just straight up cutting yourself, which isn't particularly uncommon, but even bigger deal is when you don't know what you're doing with a straight razor and you start shaving, you're putting yourself at risk of cutting yourself. Because as a blade gets more dull, it requires more force to push through an object. If it gets dull enough, you're actually going to tear and push. So as a result, instead of using extremely nice fine motions, small amounts of pressure and just sink, cutting through with extreme ease, you have to push against the skin and against the hairs to get them to cut, which leads to a lot more incidences where, because you're pushing down and trying to cut towards yourself, you're going to cut up your skin fairly badly. T-handle safety razor with disposable blades means that if the blade starts to get dull, if your shaving starts to get harder, you just throw the blade itself in the garbage or in the recycling, always throw your blades in the recycling, and get a new one to drop in exactly that easily. There's also going to have a setup like this, which gives you a very, very good angle to shave with, so that the blade is always being pressed at the right angle with just enough pressure against your skin, and it actually can't cut you very deeply. Of course, if you were to like push this against your skin and then cut side to side, you can still cut yourself, or you can take the blade out and cut yourself. Don't do either of those, it's a terrible idea, but it is technically possible. Finally, the most modern inclusion into this are these multi-bladed razors. So, that's backwards. Can you tell that I don't use this very often? These modern razors usually use a combination of plastics and other materials like woods or metals. They are theoretically the safest. I don't know necessarily why. That's not entirely fair. So the reason why they're considered to be the safest is because unlike a T-handle razor where you do have to take the blade out and handle the actual blade itself, you never need to touch the blades on a multi-blade disposable razor like this. In fact, you can quite simply pick up a new one without ever touching the blade with anything that you're not intending to cut, like your hair. However, they are still razor blades. There are still blades in there. If you go side to side across your skin, you are still going to cut yourself. They present pretty much all of the same dangers in use as a T-handle safety razor does, without much more benefit. There is a little bit more flexibility in the head, so when you're dealing with spaces in your skin that sort of like bend, like if you have, say I wanted to shave around my bone here, the head will flex to go around it, whereas a T-handle razor will not. So it does remain against your skin slightly better, which can give you a slightly better shave. So why pick one over the other? Well, simply put, these safety razors require the least amount of skill. They are extremely, extremely easy to use, but there is a lot of waste, a lot of disposables. There's these guards for the actual razor blades. There's the blades and assemblies themselves, which can't be recycled. And depending on the quality of razor you've got, this one here I actually really do like. It's nice, it works very well, and it's made of fairly durable materials as far as I've been able to tell. I've had this for 4 years now, but you are disposing blades quite often, and you might eventually have to dispose of the whole razor itself. So low skill, relatively low cost, I would say that these are the least expensive option. At the bottom end, you can obviously go up in price pretty much into indefinitely if you want to. But they're low skill, they're high waste. I would argue that these are really, really good if you're learning how to shave, or if you don't really care about your shave as much. If you just need something that will get it out of the way, you don't care about the environmental impact, you don't really care about what's going on around your shave, this one is the one to go with. If you do care about the environmental impacts, and you're willing to put a little bit of more time into this skill, but don't want to be putting as much time and effort as it takes to learn how to use a straight razor properly, which is totally fair, T-handle safety razors are the way to go. They are extremely low maintenance. There's very, very few parts that you actually need to worry about very much. Just keep everything clean, and when the blades, now that I'm doing this for camera, I almost cut myself. As soon as the blades start to get dull, chuck them out and replace them with a new blade. It's exactly this simple. And twist. It doesn't take very much more skill. For the vast majority of shaving applications, it takes exactly as much effort as the multi-blade razors do. It's not any harder that I have found. But you're dealing with significantly less waste. The waste that you do have is straight up carbon steel, so it can be fairly easily recycled in a lot of parts of the world, which is quite nice. I find that this is a much more pleasant shaving experience. The handle itself is more weighty, and the head is more weighty, more intentional, more sort of purposeful. than I found any safety razors to be. Disposable blade razors, whatever you want to call it. I need a better name for these. Disposable blade razors. It's a good piece of equipment. It holds well. It does a very good job shaving, and because it has these disposable blades, I don't need to worry about the quality of my sharpen or anything like that. I would argue that this is right here is what most people should be using for most of their shaving, to be perfectly honest. It does take a little bit more learning, but I would argue you can get a better shave. In my experience, I've been able to get quite a bit of a better shave with this, and I find it to be a better overall experience, along with there being less waste. Then finally, you have straight razors. I like straight razors. I've used a straight razor to shave my face for about 2 years now. There are some downsides to using a straight razor. For one thing, you need to keep it sharp, so you need to learn how to sharpen and how to strop effectively. And that can be relatively difficult. That's a whole different skill outside of shaving that you now need to have. You also need to learn how to safely shave with a straight razor. I would argue that safety razors, actually, there's no argument there. Safety razors are quite easily the most dangerous out of these three methods. There's the highest risk of injuring yourself using a straight razor, and the injury is likely to be quite a bit worse. This is a very, very thin, very, very sharp blade. Most razor blades are going to be like that. As a result, if you mess up and you start cutting into yourself, it's very easy to do a significant amount of damage with a blade like this. I would recommend you don't, but there is always that risk. On a lot of razors, you also need to worry about You also need to worry about rust and corrosion. So as you can see, I bought this at an antique store fairly recently as a little bit of a restoration project, and there's a few spots in the blade that have rust and a few spots that have patinaed, which is slightly different from rust, but essentially the same thing. So the whole thing does need to be cleaned and given a little bit of care, which is something that can happen with a razor that you keep in the bathroom, which is a very moist environment. There's a lot of opportunities for stuff to corrode and get rusty. So this is something that you're going to need to take a lot more time, spend a lot more time paying attention to and maintaining outside of the actual shaving time frame itself. With that being said, this is probably the closest and the best shave that you're going to get out of these three options, in my opinion. They is going to be the most intentional, the most direct. If you take a moment in your day to sort of focus your mind to get your day started, I would actually argue straight razor shaving is for you. Same deal if you're shaving your arms or anything like that. A straight razor is going to take a lot more focus and a lot more concentration. It's going to be a lot more intentional, which if you're the type of person who wants to take a few minutes in your morning to sort of practice meditation, mindfulness, focusing on something to start your day, I would recommend a straight razor for you. Yeah, that's all I've got to say. If you have any thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. Stay safe and have fun with her, guys. Peace.